I'm Craig.
And I'm Craig.
We're human beings. And we like movies.
We'll be doing reviews of brand new releases,
Old classics,
entire sagas,
and even TV shows and video games.
This is Reaction Time.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 22nd episode of Reaction Time Podcast. I am all alone today. I know, it's so sad. You're going to have to sit here and hear me talk for, I don't even know how long. Hopefully not too long, but, sit down, enjoy the fun. We are going to be talking about a video game. I know, first time in our podcast, and it's going to be great. So, Sam's not here today. He is dealing with some personal stuff, so you're going to hear from me. We are going to be talking about The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. Now, I wanted to do this because Tears of the Kingdom, obviously when this episode releases, is going to be out that day. And so I kind of wanted to just give a review of it. I wanted to talk about something in particular that I haven't really seen like a ton of. And my biggest reason for loving Breath of the Wild so much is I love how they do the Master Sword in this game. So I'll get into that. But yeah, so let's dive in. This is going to be pretty much a review of Breath of the Wild, and then also just kind of my thoughts of how they did the Master Sword and everything like that. I have decided that this game is my all-time favorite game. I can't think of another game that I have had more fun playing or even just more good experiences. I mean, this is a game that me and my wife have played over and over and over together. She's played it all the way through. I've played it all the way through probably 5 or 6 times. And it was also really cool because when this game first came out, I would call like my brother-in-law every day and we would just like talk about what we did. And it was crazy seeing the differences, right? I would go to Zora's Domain and he would have went to Death Mountain, but we were like just started playing it, right? And so you had all these crazy experiences. And to me, this game has now pretty much just ruined open world games for me, because even though they say they're open world, and yeah, they are, this and a select other few games are like the only games where this is open world. I mean, basically, you finish the tutorial and you can go fight Ganon if you want to. People do it all the time. I've seen speed runs of people doing it in 23 minutes now, which is just insane to me. I'm not that crazy, but if I ever did a speed run, it would definitely be this game. So I hold this game very dear to me. I am beyond ecstatic for Tears of the Kingdom. I cannot wait. We have, when this comes out, it will be out. But as of recording right now, we have basically another day and a half, because for me, it'll come out at 10 o'clock. So yeah, probably going to be staying up all night playing it. And, just got to work the next day. It's fine. So anyways, let's get into it. So I'm going to make the scoring system a little bit differently. It's still going to be out of 1,000. I'm just changing 2 of the categories. So we'll still do visuals. And then I'm going to combine story and acting together. And then I'm going to replace acting with gameplay. And then we'll still do score and we'll still do vibe. Because to me, story and acting usually in a video game, for the most part, going hand in hand. I mean, as we continue to grow as a society in video games, more and more acting is coming out. So at least for this game, it works. Well, if we need to change a little bit, we will. But so for visuals, let me say this first. If you have not played this game, for the love of everything, play it, buy it. If you don't have a Switch, buy a freaking Switch and buy this game. It is phenomenal. It is incredible. There is very little for me that's wrong with it. It's very nitpicky stuff. And it is a game you can just play for hours and hours and hours, and then just play for hours and hours and hours. I mean, I've probably spent over, 400 to 500 hours on this game. And the coolest thing about it is I spent all that time and just doing a recent playthrough, noticed a whole new little valley that I had never seen before. I mean, what other game can you really say that you're still discovering stuff years and years after it comes out, right? That's just how really cool this game is for me. So, visuals. I am going to give the visuals a 198 out of 200. Now, the 2 points off will be the frame drops for the Lost Woods and where the Master Sword are at. Yeah, it sucks. It's like the most beautiful place in the whole game, and that's where it gets really, really bad. I've never had a huge problem with it. I know a lot of people that just are like, oh my gosh, this is the place that you're looking for in this game, and the frames they're bad. They're really bad in that spot, and they maybe could have done it a little bit differently, but I don't think it would have looked as good. So that's just, switch power. Just, not quite powerful enough to really show all of those beautiful things in a really good frame rate. So that would be the only reason why I would take 2 points off. The animation style and everything I love it. I think it looks really, really cool. Everything looks very beautiful. All the enemies are really cool. The Ganondorf looks awesome, in his first form and even in his final form. I will say a lot of the dungeons look the same and the bosses look relatively the same. So you could kind of say that's a little bit of, another point off for that. But there's so much to just take in, and so many times where I'm just awestruck by the scenery and the landscaping and all of that kind of stuff. So for me, very, very good. Going into story and acting. So the main reason why I wanted to do this podcast episode is because I want to talk about how they did the Master Sword in this game. So, but it's not necessarily part of it. It's kind of its own story. It's not really even a story, but just how I feel about it. So for the story of Zelda and the acting of Zelda, I'm going to give it a 125. Story, it's pretty much non-existent. You get some cool memories and stuff like that. The crazy war from before is cool, but you don't really see much of it. Age of Calamity showed it, but that game wasn't great, so I won't even get into that. But the acting, not great. I would say, Zelda, she's just kind of the worst, and I'm sad that they're bringing her back for the, Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, obviously they got to keep her, but I think she's pretty low on there. Sidon, I would say, is probably my favorite acting out of everybody. He did great. He had a great personality. They did him really, really well. So props to him, whoever he is. So the Master Sword. Since not the beginning, so the very first game, just The Legend of Zelda, it wasn't the Master Sword. I think it was just called the Magical Sword. It's supposed to be the precursor to the Master Sword. And the Master Sword didn't show up until the third game, A Link to the Past. And it has been, to my knowledge, it has been in every single game. The only games that I have not played for Zelda are a good amount of the handheld ones. Not all of them, but some of them. So Minish Cap, I'm now just going through. I know you can hate me. It's fine. I didn't really have a handheld growing up, so I wasn't really able to play it. Oracle of Seasons, Oracle of Ages, Phantom Hourglass, and Spirit Tracks. Other than that, I've played all of the basic mainline, Zeldas that you can think of. And so the Master Sword is in all of them. And the Master Sword is awesome, right? It seals in evil. It's the most powerful thing that you can find. You get them in every single game. So for me, with Breath of the Wild, I loved so many things that they did with the Master Sword. The first thing being, you can beat this game without even knowing it exists, which I think is awesome. To my knowledge, I'm not even sure if there's a side quest or a shrine quest that even hints about this thing. Maybe one thing that does, but I don't think it tells you where it's located or anything like that. By exploring the map, you stumble across the Lost Woods, and you can go in there, and if you make it all the way through the Lost Woods, then you find the Master Sword. So I love that it wasn't just given to you. And the other thing that I really, really loved, and I can't even tell you why, but it's one of my favorite moments in the whole game is, so you get there and the grand Deku tree is basically telling you this is the Master Sword, it's the most powerful thing. Be careful, because if you're not worthy, then you won't be able to pull it up, and it can basically kill you. I mean, that's pretty much how it is. It just drains all of your life. So you go up there and you don't know, right? So you're just like, okay, I'm going to try and pull it out. And it cuts to a different viewpoint. And it's just Link, and it's him holding the Master Sword. And all it shows is your hearts. It takes everything else away. And what it does is the hearts just slowly start to fade away, right? Quarter by quarter by quarter of the heart. And if you have a certain amount of hearts, you'll make it to the next animation where Link has pulled it a little bit. And then if you have the next amount of hearts, it'll pull it just a little bit more. And if you have the next amount of hearts, it'll pull it just a little bit more. And I think it does it like 4 or 5 times. And so in all of the other Zelda games, you basically were just given this sword. And you were given this sword by defeating dungeons, by doing usually dungeons or defeating bosses or something. And so while it was cool that you got the Master Sword and you're like, yeah, I beat these dungeons, and so I'm given this sword, to me, it always felt like you were just given the Master Sword, right? I never felt like I fully earned it, And this is supposed to be the, greatest sword of all time, so powerful and everything like that. And so to me, you had to keep going back because you didn't know how many hearts it would take. And you just kept going back when you got another heart to see if you were basically worthy enough. And you go back, you defeat a bunch of more shrines, you get some more hearts, you go back, you still weren't worthy enough. And it takes all the way up to 13 hearts when you can finally pull it out. And that felt so awesome. It felt so rewarding because I kept, doing all these shrines and exploring the world and all these other things. And I unlocked it myself, and I figured out how many, hearts I needed to be able to unlock it. And so it's a very rewarding feeling because you went out, you explored the world, you beat a lot of different enemies, you solved a lot of puzzles, maybe you defeated some dungeons, and so you're doing all of these things, but if you don't know where it's at, then great, you do all those things and you find other weapons, and they're weapons that are stronger, but you find this on your own by exploring the world. It felt like it just felt like you're Link, right? You're Link, you are exploring this world, and by doing that, you are rewarded. Rather than, we told you to do these things in this specific order, and you have to kill these people in this specific way, and then, oh, hey, you did those things, awesome, here's a reward. And so it was so cool. And I remember saving a 30-second clip of that because I just thought it was one of the coolest moments in Zelda where it clips differently and you're finally able to pull it out and you're like, oh yeah, I'm so awesome. I did all of this. This is me. And so that was super cool, right? And then what happens is basically if you're around any of the guardian or the corrupted people, your Master Sword will glow and it doubles its strength. And so, which is really cool. And it's obviously, once it's doubled its strength, it's the strongest weapon in the game. Technically, you can get like a Lionel sword that has, a attack buff on it that can be a little bit stronger, but the Master Sword never dies. I mean, it will run out of power and then you got to wait for it to recharge, which I think was totally fine. That never bothered me. I understand they didn't want you to just have this one thing that would, basically you'd use it for the entire game. So then they announced that there's going to be some DLC. And one of the things was the Trials of the Master Sword. So it comes out, and I remember downloading the DLC. I got it right away. I knew I was going to want it. Nintendo is very good with their DLC. And so it's basically what happens when you have gotten the Master Sword and you have it in your possession, you can bring the Master Sword back and you can do these 3 different trials. And so what it is when you put the Master Sword back in its pedestal, you are teleported to a new place, and it takes away all of your armor, all of your weapons, all of your arrows, your bows, everything, right? Your inventory is empty. You have no food. You have no materials. You don't have anything. And it takes you through 3 trials. And pretty much what happens is each trial that you beat, it gains extra power. So it gains 10. So the Master Sword, without any like corrupted people or monsters around, it's at 30. And then with them around, it's at 60. So it strips away everything you have and gives you, honestly, very difficult trials. These aren't easy. These are really hard, especially for like your first time. And so you have to beat the first trial, which funny enough, the first time I did the Master Sword trials, the first trial was the one that gave me the most issues. And then the second and third one weren't as bad. But then going back and playing it again, the first one was easy, and then the second one was harder, and then the third one was harder, which I'm sure is as they intended. But just, I don't know, for some reason, the first one was, it was so hard, and then the other 2 were easier for me. But so you go in, you're stripped of everything, and you have to pass these very brutal challenges because you're basically stealing weapons from enemies. You are using, the only things that you have are your relics, so like your bombs, and like your magnesis and stuff. And so you are fighting these enemies that get progressively harder. If you are clever enough to look around, you find little hidden treasures that require you sometimes to do certain things. Like one of them is the red choo-choo guys. If you bring one over to one of the walls and burn some grass, it'll create an updraft, and you can fly up that updraft to collect a treasure that's on the shelf, and it gives you like a giant boomerang or something like that. So you can make it a little bit easier, but really not that much easier if you kind of explore and look at your surroundings and you solve basically little puzzles. And what happens is every few rounds that you go through, you get to like this little safe place pretty much, and it gives you some armor if it's available. It gives you some weapons sometimes. There's trees that you can chop down to make wood or to get apples. There's a little cook station where you can cook up different recipes and stuff like that, so you can better prepare yourself. And then you rinse and repeat, right? You go into the next few rounds doing harder stuff, you go to a safe place, and then you do the next few rounds. And then what happens is you get teleported to this other spot where it's just basically you running up some stairs. And you put the Master Sword back when you've run up all the stairs, and you go back to where the Deku tree is. And it's like, okay, your Master Sword power is now at 40. It still only goes to 60 when you're around corrupted stuff. And so then you can just do it again. You go and you do the next trial. And each trial is very different. So the first one's kind of a lot of just fighting stuff. The second one has to do with a lot of like aerial stuff. So you're a lot more like bows and everything like that. You're floating. The first, I can't remember how many of them, you can just float basically wherever you want. And so you can do like slow down time all the time and stuff like that. And so you go through all those things and then you beat that one. But your stairs have now doubled. And so then when you beat the second trial, your Master Sword is now at 50. And so then you can do the third and final trials. And like I said, the second playthrough, my goodness, the third one was super difficult. I don't know why it wasn't the first time, but and it's very long. And any time, if you die at any point in any of these trials before beating the full trial, you have to restart from the very beginning. Even if you've made it to a safe place, it does not matter. You have to restart from the very beginning and redo the whole thing, which is just another thing that's like, oh my gosh, this is hard, because some of them have like 15 to 20 different scenarios that you have to get through. And they do really cool stuff. Like, a lot of them are elemental. And so you have a lot of ice spots, and then you have a lot of lava spots and spots where it's always lightning. And so you have to change your weapons that you're using to make sure that you're not going to get struck by lightning, or you're throwing your metal stuff at enemies so they get struck by lightning. And so you go through, you beat the third one, and you go up the stairs that have now tripled. and you go into basically this just big room with all of the I don't know what they're called, but it's basically the people that are the holder of the shrines, and they pretty much just tell you like, pretty much what it's saying is you're awesome. You're able to unlock the full potential of the Master Sword because of these trials that you've passed. You're the greatest warrior type of stuff, and your Master Sword is now always glowing, even if you're not by the corrupted, and obviously it's at 60 damage. I loved the trials of the Master Swords, not just because they were a lot of fun. My favorite part of Breath of the Wild in terms of like gameplay is going to I think it's the Evertide Island, where basically it's what the trial of the Master Swords are, where you are stripped of everything. And it's so cool because you just rely on basically your wits and a lot more like stealthy type stuff and stuff like that. But to me, when you get the Master Sword in every other Zelda game, it is just the greatest sword, right? It's just incredible. There is no reason to ever use any other sword in The Legend of Zelda when you have the Master Sword. Some things could be said about the long sword and Ocarina of Time, but for the most part, it is always the Master Sword. It's the strongest. It will just destroy everything. And so this Master Sword in the game, technically 30 is not that great, right? 60 is kind of like the peak. And so 30 is basically, that's half, right? And so there's little times that the Master Sword is very useful unless you're by like, infected and corrupted people. And so, but by doing these trials and by honing all of your skills into it, you then unlock the full potential of the Master Sword rather than just being handed it and it is at its full potential. I love what they did with the Master Sword because I felt like I unlocked its potential. I felt like I spent the time to make it so much better than what it was, rather than it just being handed to me because I followed what the story told me to do. There is no way in any other game that you can't get the Master Sword. You are just given the Master Sword because it's what's used to seal evil, right? Where this is... It's just so cool because it becomes the best weapon, and not only does it grow in strength, but the amount of time before it needs to recharge, so the amount of hits and stuff it can do before it has to recharge gets longer and longer. Now, I would say, I think accomplishing all of those trials, I think I would have liked it better if it was just, it never needed to recharge. I understand why they didn't do that, because then what else would you use? You would always use the Master Sword. But for me, if I've done all of that, I'm rewarded, right? I don't know how many people did the trials of the Master Swords and actually made it through. And so I'm fine that it doesn't last forever. It lasts a good amount of time before it needs to recharge. So it's almost like, well, just make it last forever, But that's besides the point. And so I loved it so much because I felt like I earned the Master Sword, and I felt like I made the Master Sword stronger by stuff that I did, and stuff that was difficult, and stuff I didn't need to do, right? The other games, there's no other way to do it. You just always get it, and it's always the most powerful. This game, you don't even need to find it, for one. You don't necessarily have to use it, for two, and you don't have to make it stronger if you don't want to. But I wanted to, and I wanted to unlock its true potential, and I got so rewarded for that. And so I'm very curious / excited to see what they do in Tears of the Kingdom. We've kind of... I'm going to kind of do like a hopes and predictions, not like super long, of just Tears of the Kingdom, and it'll only kind of, there's really no spoilers. It's just stuff they've shown in the trailer, but they've shown glimpses of the Master Sword and it's all destroyed. So I'm curious kind of what they're going to do with that. But I loved the Master Sword, and I haven't seen many people talk about it, but to me, it was the most rewarding thing that I could get. It's kind of like when you get, cool cheat codes in a game for 100%ing it, right? And you can make fat heads and other stuff like that. And so that's kind of what it was to me. Is I put in all the time, and I got this really cool, awesome sword that I basically use almost all the time. That's super powerful. But I did that. The game didn't just hand it to me because I beat some dungeons or I, delivered a letter to a person so I could cross a gate or something. And so I love the Master Sword. I think it's so cool in Breath of the Wild. I think Nintendo did it perfectly in this game. And I hope they continue to do that. And I hope they continue to kind of do this more open world thing, because it was just so cool that you could just stumble upon it. You found it because you looked for it rather than just being given it. So anyways, little side story, how much I love the Master Sword in this game. On to gameplay. So gameplay in this game, I really had very little issues with the durability aspect of it. I know people, it's not their favorite, and that's fine. If it's not your favorite, it's okay. But I never had any issues with it. I liked basically, you have swords, you have two-handed weapons, and you have spears is your like main three different. They have boomerangs and stuff, but those are like your three different weapons, and you can use them differently. And so I think overall the gameplay was very good. I never got bored of, fighting things. I know there's really not like much. You just are basically hitting the same button for the most part. I mean, there's a lot of times you have to sidestep. There's a lot of times you have to parry. There's a lot of times that you can sidestep or flip at the perfect time to get a flurry rush, which is just a great feeling. But where you can climb everything, you can freaking shield surf everywhere. The time stop that slows down basically whenever you do like an arrow midair is so incredible. Gives you just the greatest feeling when you get an awesome shot with something. So it could be a little bit better. But for me personally, I would give it a 195 out of 200 because I think it was really well done. So on to the score. This is one of the first games when you are exploring a big field that you don't get that great Zelda music. And I remember playing it and thinking, man, I want that. But in the other games, like for instance, Ocarina of Time, right? You're passing through Hyrule Field and, you have the awesome music. To me, you're not spending a ton of time in that field. And so I kind of thought about it. Yeah, at certain moments it would have been kind of cool. But if you think about you're always in some type of field, right? So I think it would have gotten annoying over time. And so what Nintendo did is I think they realized that and they were like, okay, we need to do soft melodies, stuff that is very, very beautiful, but is kind of in the background, little noises that just kind of come out here and there, and stuff like that. And so I love the score in this game because of that. At times you get the classic, the Zelda, gosh, I cannot think of like when you're in like Ganondorf's castle or stuff like that in the old games, and you have that awesome music. You get that at times in these games, but a lot of it's all brand new stuff that they're using, and I think about it and I love it more now, where you just have these beautiful, soft little melodies as you're exploring this whole world. And the music when you're fighting never gets old. It's all so good. I wouldn't say it's perfect because I do miss some of the classic Zelda music that I think they could have put in maybe places. I'm not sure how it would have worked. So I would give it a 192 out of 200 because it is almost perfect, but I think at times it could be just a little bit better. And especially where we just got the final trailer for Tears of the Kingdom. Oh my gosh, the music in that trailer is just phenomenal. So now I don't know how much of that's actually going to be in the game, but for the love, I hope it is, because I freaking listened to that trailer like 400 times. I seriously, a day at work, I just had it and I just replay the trailer while I was working. So I wasn't watching it. I was just listening to it in my headphones. Yeah, guys, I'm a nerd and I know that, and it's fine. I've accepted my life at this point. So yeah, vibe, 200 out of 200, easy. I don't even have to think about it. Seriously, I would probably give this a 201 just because I'm an elitist, and I this is my favorite game of all time. And so Tears of the Kingdom has been so difficult to wait for, but I'm so excited for it. And so yeah, that is going to be kind of the main portion for Breath of the Wild. That's kind of my review on it. Hope you enjoyed all of that. If I were to rate it out of 10, obviously you would know I would give it a 10 out of 10. I didn't write my numbers down, so I'm not going to guess what I gave it, but it was probably very high other than the story and acting because it's not the greatest. But if you did the math, I'm going to guess like a 9.15, I think. So, but I'll have to re-listen and calculate it. But so I'm going to kind of get into just a quick hopes, predictions, or just kind of cool things that I wanted to say about Tears of the Kingdom. There's really going to be almost no spoilers. Again, game's not even out, so I can't really spoil too much, but I will be spoiling things in a trailer. Probably not much of like the most recent trailer, more of like the first two / the gameplay trailer. But before that, look at your phone, stop what you're doing, click in the show notes, and hit the subscribe link. You can subscribe through Spotify. There's a 99 cents, there is a $5, and then there is a $10. Obviously, the $10 is the only option. If you don't subscribe for the $10, your Breath of the Wild game that you've ordered, your pre-order is going to be late. So sorry, you're just going to have to do it. There is a Patreon link. I have made more Patreon tiers. There's like a $3, a $5, a $10, and like a $20 one because people make $20 ones with crazy stuff in there. So go and look at that. The $20 one, I'd kind of put that you could get early access to the episodes. We can't really like early release them, but if somebody's giving us $20 a month, when we get them done, we could send you like the just the MP3 or whatever the freak these things are called. AVI, I think is what they are, but so that you could listen to it like on your phone, but it wouldn't be through like Spotify or anything like that. Because if we do like a subscription by an episode, then like it's locked, but we don't really want to lock them. We want everybody to listen to them. And so maybe on like YouTube, I can maybe give you access or something like that privately. And then, we could release it, but it could be a day early. It could be a couple days early. It could be a week early, just depending on when we record and how much time we have to edit. But anyways, go and subscribe. We have a Twitter now. I am posting daily random questions, random polls, just little things like that. So make sure to follow there and kind of interact with us. We've got our Discord, our Instagram, our TikTok, and we have our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to that, ring the bell. I try to post daily on that too, a little bit different than what Twitter is, so it's not just the same thing, but I'll kind of see how long that lasts. So Tears of the Kingdom. I love, basically, to me, of what we have seen so far, it looks like Nintendo has taken every complaint from Breath of the Wild and has changed it in Tears of the Kingdom. The weapon durability, you have the fuse now where you can fuse it to another weapon and your durability just gets changed. It's a brand new weapon. It lasts even longer. The inventory interface has been revamped to look much better and easier to navigate. You get a recipe book now. So when you make a recipe, it saves it in there so that you can relook at what recipes or what you need to make those recipes. So far, the story looks like it's going to be crazy, but we have no idea. It looks like there's caves. It looks like there are dungeons. And so I'm very ecstatic because it just seems like they're taking all the complaints that we had. Climbing everywhere was so cool, but after a while it kind of got annoying. And so you have the ascend ability now where you can just basically jump to the top of a place if there's a ceiling to it. the world seems like it's massive. You got all of this sky stuff. It looks like there's this whole underground place to explore. And so I am so excited because it just seems like Breath of the Wild for them was so different than anything that they had made. And I think they were kind of trying to feel out how people would react to it. And obviously, everybody reacted insanely. Everybody loved it for the most part. I mean, to me, people that have played it loved it. People that haven't played it said that they hated it when they never played it. But it's not for everybody. I understand that. But it seems like they have took every complaint that they heard of and basically changed it for this game. And anybody out there that's like, oh, this is just DLC, I'm sorry, it's not. This is a brand new game. Yes, it does have the world of Breath of the Wild, but that world has been changed. And everything that you can do with like attaching stuff together and making crazy things like this freaking Minecraft and Zelda, like, I don't even know. This is going to be awesome. I'm so excited for it to come out. But so my biggest thing that I want from Tears of the Kingdom is, and I'm not sure, there's not really, I don't know, maybe they figured out a way, but I can't see a way of doing both. I want a really cool story, but I still want the full open worldness of Breath of the Wild. I want to be able to basically start the game and do a tutorial or whatever it is, and then go fight Ganondorf again. To me, that was so cool that you were able to do that if you wanted to try. Now, that doesn't work for the story, obviously, because how do you create a good story if people don't follow something? And they kind of did that with the memories, but the memories didn't really work out. So again, I'm not sure how they would do it, but I really want them to keep the open worldness to the full open world that it was with Breath of the Wild. But that's hard to do with a good story, so I'm not sure. Maybe it'll be fine. If the story is very good, then maybe I won't care. But it's Nintendo. Their stories have never been the best, especially even with Zelda. Skyward Sword's probably the best Zelda story out there. And it's still not perfect, but it's, it's pretty good in terms of all Zelda games. And so, I don't know. We'll see. But, yeah, it seems like seeming like they're getting some really good actors for everything. So shout out to Ganondorf. Super excited. And we'll just kind of see how it goes. But I'm hoping for both. And the other thing that I want from this game is I want dungeons that are very good. I want dungeons that are different from each other, that aren't just the same reskin, and that aren't just pretty much the same, but with a little different dynamic in each of them. I mean, pretty much each dungeon in Breath of the Wild was like, it was the beast, right? And so each beast you could control a little bit differently, but it was for the most part copy and paste. And so those were very underwhelming. The other thing that I want is I want a legit Ganondorf battle. Like, I'm sorry, the one in Breath of the Wild, so underwhelming. It was, even if you didn't beat the Divine Beast and you didn't have him have his health cut in half, it wasn't that hard. And then especially the end when he turns into his crazy Ganon pig form, it was the easiest thing that you could ever do. Like, I don't know if there's anybody that has really ever failed at that last part. And so I understand that they want him to beat it, but where you did so good with like the Master Sword and stuff, and then the DLC that they came out, like the Champions Ballard, and they had that boss in that dungeon, that was good. That was an awesome boss. He was hard. The dungeon, yeah, it was still kind of a reskin, but it was way more complex and way more cool. And so I want freaking Ocarina of Time type dungeons, even if it means I get a freaking water temple and I want to freaking die. But I want like a Demise last boss, because to me, Demise in Skyward Sword is still my favorite last boss in any of the games, even the original Ocarina. The original Ocarina of Time, yes, it is a classic, and it's really cool, but it's still like not that difficult. And so I want a hard boss that I feel so rewarded because I beat him. So those are my main hopes. Obviously, very curious to see what they're going to do with all the Zonai. We've already seen a lot of it. It seemed like they're going to dive a lot into that. So very curious about all the lore of that and how they're going to go through with that. So yeah, I think that's mainly it that I wanted to talk about. For the love, again, even if you haven't played Breath of the Wild, again, I haven't played Tears of the Kingdom, but buy Tears of the Kingdom and play it, because I'm curious, if you haven't played Breath of the Wild, you're basically getting like 2 games for one, because you have the whole world of Breath of the Wild that you can explore that's brand new for you, and you have the sky, and you have the caves. So do it, buy it, make it sell $1 bajillion and a bajillion units so that we can get more of these, and that we can show Nintendo that this is the Zeldas that we want, because up until Breath of the Wild, it was getting very just similar. It was very linear. They added a little bit things here and there, but there was just nothing that made it feel like Zelda again. This game, Breath of the Wild, made it feel like the original Zelda. And so, yeah, I think that's pretty much it, guys. This was much longer than I thought it was going to be, so I hope that you all listened. And I hope that you agree with me. If you don't, I'll only be a little bit sad, and it's fine. But yeah, next week, it could be me again, or it'll be me and Sam, but we'll just kind of see. If it's me again, I'll probably talk about maybe my first week of Tears of the Kingdom. I've got 2 kids, and so I'm going to be playing it, but definitely not as much as I would like to. I mean, obviously, I'd love to play it just day in and day out and not have to work, but, we all have to work, so we have jobs. And so I'll probably do that. If I haven't played enough, then I might do maybe a review of, like, the Metroid Prime Remastered. If it's Sam's back, then it might be Guardians. I went and saw Guardians, so if, he sees it, maybe we'll do that, or maybe we'll do something else, or who knows. But, yeah, so, tune us next week for another random elevators are cautiously turning into oceans. Now, think if McDonald's ended. That's it, guys. That was really dumb. So, yeah, stay tuned for next week, and see you then. Okay, bye. Hello? 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 Why doesn't this work? Why doesn't this work? Oh, I want to know how I sound, but I guess it's got something to do with you. Does it work now?